So what's going on, guys? My name is Mr. Dalek JD, and in this video we're going to be talking about brand new Call of Duty World War II information, which has come from the latest issue of a UK gaming magazine called Edge, which had an exclusive report on World War II with some new information from the guys at Sledgehammer Games. This includes some attention to detail, some multiplayer details, but more importantly, a tiny bit of zombies, which is extremely exciting. With us only being a week or so away from E3, where the multiplayer reveal is going to take place, as well as potentially some more zombies info, anything new we learn about this game now is definitely exciting, as it's getting the hype levels back up again. Now we'll touch on zombies a tiny bit later into the video, as I want to talk about everything we know so far. So make sure you watch through to the end to see that, as well as the two concept artwork screens which look amazing. But the first thing they mention about is the attention to detail within the game itself. And as we know, Glenn and Michael visited many locations around Europe, and they said they went out there not just because they wanted to go and scan everything, but because they wanted to get a sense of what does it feel like to be in Normandy or Aachen at 10 below with snow coming down. And there's this theory of how the brain works. You're wired to pattern match. You're wired to build a model around things that you're familiar with. The best example is if you were to paint a lake. You're going to paint it blue, right? That's generally wrong. Most lakes aren't blue. If you look for a pinhole at the water in a lake, you realise it's maybe blue, green or green grey. So they really want to go and get these specific details so that no detail is undermined, something that has meticulously been looked at, so it is true to detail and true to what it would be like during World War II. And they say that during their visit to the Hurtgen forest, they noticed the ground wasn't white, but it was studded with pine needles. And they say, like, it's a tiny thing, but it's an example of that pinhole-like view of what it looked like when in 1944, terribly unprepared in canvas winter clothes, these soldiers were holding the line. These foxholes are 10 feet from the road. They're defending against a 10-mile convoy of German tanks. You never get that from reading a book. So that they also mentioned that they visited a concentration camp, and that they learned that tank commanders would modify their tanks by fortifying the side or the front to suit their preferred tactics. So that means the devs looked at technical data to find unknown weak points in tank treads, so that when it comes to warfare with tanks, which we still don't know the specifics of, but it sounds like they're going to have a pretty big deal in the game, it's going to be very realistic. Now for multiplayer, which I'm excited to hear as well, of course, which we'll learn more about very soon, they said that the pace of it's the fast action experience that we're used to, with gritty, visceral, but certainly the boosts and thrusts and abilities that were introduced in Advanced Warfare, future technology and exoskeletons are just not appropriate for this game, which is just... it's just beautiful music to my ears reading this. You can imagine trying to find a balance where it feels strategic and appropriate to the time period while still maintaining the fun of multiplayer. It's more grounded and more strategic, and I think you'll find it's not as fast. Now, them saying strategic multiplayer, that's something COD's not had in a long time. They said the maps have the feeling of being able to identify your lanes and threats. It's so different when you're grounded. Now they also mentioned that they spent a lot of time on map design, and there's a lot of fundamental rules that they've now got in place about sightlines and the way that engagements take place, because they say it's completely different now. Now you don't have to worry about an unseen threat from the sky. And they mentioned that the multiplayer map's going to be set on different fronts, and they'll feature battlefields that will be revisiting from the single player side of things, but they'll also expand those to different fronts, but they didn't specify too much. And the juicy thing that we all want to know is they said that their trip in Europe informed every part of their game, even zombies. They said there's some really authentic stuff in there. There's backstory that's based on real events. And they added that the mode will be unique to their Dead Space signature, which is so exhilarating to hear, because if you guys aren't aware, Glenn Schofield created the Dead Space games, which had around about 3 games in total, which in his own words, when he began creating it, he said it was the most terrifying game that they could create. And the game's set in the 26th century sci-fi universe, featuring environments, weapons and characters typical of the horror genre. The original game put you in control of an engineer who battles these weird creatures called necromorphs, which are monstrous reanimated human corpses aboard an interstellar mining ship. On screen I've got some gameplay so you can see what the game looks like if you guys have never played it. I'm sure a lot of you guys watching are familiar with it. You've played it at some point during all of the releases back in the good old days when it was on Xbox 360 and PS3, but as you can see, it's a third person horror survival game. game. Now, they've made out that this mode, which is confirmed to be called Nazi Zombies by the way, is its own mode, where it's going to be separate story from the campaign and multiplayer side of things, and it's about the story of the Third Reich's desperate attempt to create an army in the final stages of the war. And that's all we know so far. That's all they mention at the reveal for Call of Duty World War II. But now we have a tiny bit more information with them going back to their Dead Space signature, as well as it being its own thing. Now, if like me, you've played Dead Space before, you will know how horrifying that series is. And if they're throwing some of that signature Dead Space onto the Zombies mode, I think we're going to be getting one of the best Call of Duty games we've had in a long time, because it could change up the way that the Zombies mode itself is played fundamentally. Dead Space is a third-person game. Sledgehammer Games were planning on making a third-person Call of Duty before it was cut and they had to work on Modern Warfare 3. Now, I'm not saying they are going to have it as a third-person, but if they are having that Dead Space signature, that could be part of it. But we've never had a Zombies mode which has been truly focused on the sense of horrifying the player and giving us a really on-edge experience. Now, something else that we can't forget is they mentioned that this mode will be based on real-life events. Now, if you guys know any of the history of what happened with Germany during World War II, there was some very sinister experimentation that the Nazis used. Stuff like head injury experiments, freezing experiments, malaria, mustard gas, seawater, incendiary bombs, blood coagulation experiments. That's just some of the crazy things that they done back then. And if they're trying to build an army in the final stages of the war, then there's a guarantee that they're going to go down the route of not only being scary and horrifying in the sense of gameplay, but also in the terms of backstory by using really gruesome and horrific storytelling to really drive home this freaky, horrifying experience. And definitely for me, as I started playing Call of Duty Zombies, it wasn't just the gameplay that gripped me, it was also the hidden underlying story and the different elements that influenced some of the things that we saw during World at War and Black Ops 1 Zombies. Of course, they've strayed away from that now, which is still perfectly fine, but I'm sure a lot of you guys miss that sort of aspect, and we are getting it, hopefully, with what they're bringing with their Zombies mode. Now, Glenn Schofield and Michael Condrey have been developing games for a long time, and it's fair to say that Glenn Schofield had some incredible success with Dead Space, and that puts me in great confidence that they're going to be delivering a fantastic Zombies mode this year. As Exo Zombies, I think we can all agree, was sort of a last minute thing that they thought of very late into the development of the game, and didn't feel like something which had just a true labour of love plastered over it. It felt like a very rushed thing, and I feel when it comes to this time around, they've definitely thought long and hard about how they're going to make this good, and hopefully when it comes to E3 we'll start to see even more bits of information surrounding Zombies. It wouldn't be a massive surprise if they didn't, but I think it would be in their best interest because we are so damn interested in this portion of the game, and that's the one that has the most mystery shrouded around it, that they don't give us some other little teasers here and there. Yeah, with regards to backstory based on real events, if you know any specifics that you think would be amazing to add into the Zombies mode, drop it down below in the comment section. That would be absolutely awesome. Now, you're probably thinking, John, where the hell are these new screenshots and concept art that you were talking about? Well, here we have them on screen, my friends. This first one is a concept art which is quoted saying, "Beauty exists in the darkest corner," which is the Theater Aron in Germany. Now, you do notice that in these concept arts you don't see swastikas, they're replaced with the Iron Cross. Now, these are concept arts, they aren't finalized artworks, so we could possibly still see it within the game, but I'm not too fussed if we do either way. This next shot is from Normandy, and my god, does this concept artwork look beautiful. It's just so gloomy and dark and gritty. I'm just loving what I'm seeing right here. Now, we have some more which legitimately just came out as I was editing this video, which I'm really excited about. So the first one is a image of one of the main soldiers that we fight against, the American that we see in the trailer towards the end quite a few few times. The next shot is a really high definition shot of the church that we saw in this concept artwork, so you can compare the two and you can see how accurate they got it from the artwork to it being in the game. And this next shot here is of a few soldiers walking towards a load of tanks, which just looks so cool. You can see the soldier with the M1 Grand just on his back, and it looks so realistic. This next new shot we have is of a bunch of soldiers shooting, but you can tell they are under a lot of attack. I believe this is somewhere in France, judging by the little restaurant you can see there near. Someone shooting what I believe to be an MP40. You can see several soldiers that are being shot at and are ducking for fire. There is someone huddled by that car and another that is just running for cover, which just looks so cool. This last shot is we can see two soldiers hiding behind a wall which has just been destroyed, and you can just see that they are just under a ton of fire. You can see a tank there as well, barraging into some houses in front, and I can't quite tell what the weapons these soldiers are holding, but if you guys recognize any of the weapons, have any idea what sort of scenes or where this is taking place, let me know inside the comments. Now, I believe all of these screenshots and concept art that's been shown is all related to just campaign environments only, but there's a good chance that some of these will transcend over into multiplayer and maybe even into zombies. The stories of the Third Reich's desperate attempt to create an army in the final stages of the war, and it's based on real life events. So if we're going to be playing as the Third Reich creating the army, or if we're going to be playing as some completely separate group that are fighting this army, you could maybe guess that some of these environments may have similar locales to where we fight in, but again, we have no real idea. But lots of juicy screenshots, lots of info. Are you guys excited for World War II? I believe the hype died down a little bit when Chronicles came out, but now that we're starting to get over Chronicles, it's soon releasing on PC and Xbox, we're ready to find out some new details about the next Call of Duty. Let me know what you think. If you enjoyed the video at any point during this time and you're still here, you made it to the end, give yourself a pat on the back and definitely drop a thumbs up on the videos. I'd really appreciate that. Helps get the videos out there to a wider audience, and if you guys want to stay up to date, make sure you hit that subscribe button, as I'll be giving you guys a load of info and hopefully some gameplay from World War II straight from the show floor at E3 next week. But thank you so much for watching, guys. You've been amazing. I'll catch you next time.